Hello, and welcome back to the finale live stream for Streets of New Capenna. Today I'll be going over the last two portions of these cards, multicolored and artifacts. So I do not have the live chat open. I will just be going through these. So I will address any comments you leave in the comment section down below. But no one has watched this live. There has been a few people on the rewatch. I implore you, if you are watching this on the rewatch after the stream is over, please feel free to comment. I will address all comments. We've come up in the previous videos with some deck ideas that we could work with once the set is released, and I'm really looking forward to some of those. So let's just jump right in with multicolored then. So starting at the top, we have Avon, Heart Stabber with 1 blue, 1 black, Bird Assassin. It's a 1/1. It's a rare. It has flying. As long as there are 5 or more mana value among cards in your graveyard, it gets +2/+2 and has Death Touch. When it dies, mill 2 cards, then draw a card. Maybe that'll be used. A lot of people don't tend to use, at least the people I've played, don't tend to use cards that mill themselves down unless they have a good reason to. Like, if there is a lot more Jund in this deck, it's not Jund. What is it? It's, the green-black from, so long ago now. I forgot the set's name. But hopefully, if you're a Magic player, you know what I'm talking about. The one with Dredge. If there was more cards that dredged, basically, I think cards like this would see a bit more play, but there's not. So, moving on. Black Market Tycoon. 1 red, 1 green. Cat Rogue. 2/2. Also rare. At the beginning of your upkeep, Black Tycoon deals 2 damage to you for each treasure you control. Tap it, create a treasure token. I'm confused. Like, I don't see a reason to play this at all. Like, this, yeah, it gives you a treasure token if you tap it. It doesn't come in with haste, so you can't even do it on your first turn. So by the time you can tap it, if you already got a bunch of treasure tokens, that's going to deal 2 for each one you control. No, I don't think this will see play. And this is like a waste of a card. And how it's rare is beyond me. Unless there was something that you could enchant yourself, like with white, that says any damage dealt to you is dealt to target opponent instead, like, we've had in the past. So maybe this would see play in Commander or Extended or Vintage or something, but not in Standard at all. Wow. Let's just move on. Body Dropper. 1 black, 1 red. This one's a common, Devil Warrior for 2/2. When you sacrifice another creature, put a 1/1 counter on Body Dropper. Tap 2, red and a black. Sacrifice a creature, Body Dropper gains menace till end of turn. Now this might see you play. This is actually a pretty decent card, especially with the standard we have. And with black, a lot of black spells make you sacrifice creatures, so you could be buffing him up real quick. Hell, he would deserve to be a rare, And Black Market Tycoon should be a common. I think they got the back. Really think they got them backwards here. But I definitely think Body Dropper has a lot of potential. Moving on, we have Brazen Upstart. For red, green, and white, it has Vigilance. It's a 4/2, uncommon. When it dies, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card among them, put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of the library in any order. I swear we had a card like this before, either in green or something. Like, almost this exact card. It could see play. I mean, it is a 3 cost for a 4/2. And it has an ability that when it dies, it does something for you. So, I mean, like I said, it could see play. I think this is playable in standard, but it probably won't be your top choice. Moving on to Broker's Ascendancy, we have a green, white, blue, rare enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control and a loyalty counter on each planeswalker you control. That will see play. If you are running those 3 colors, I don't see why you wouldn't choose this card. Especially with modification. Although there's not too much mod in white and blue. There is a bunch of mod in green. So I think this would be a good reason to build a modification deck. But your main focus is going to be around green with a splash of white and blue. Broker's Charm. Also green, white, and blue. Choose one. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 till end of turn. It deals damage equal to its power to a creature or planeswalker your opponent controls. Or you can destroy target enchantment, or you can draw 2 cards. I definitely think this will see play. But we do... I'm not sure. Because that first ability is probably the best. Otherwise, you're paying 2, or you're paying 3 to draw 2 cards, which we have plenty of those in blue. We have plenty of 1 or 2 drops that destroy target enchantment in green, and that first ability mainly is a 1 or 2 drop in green, either to plus it up or to deal damage. I've showcased that in my plays, with my mono green deck. But to have all 3, I don't know. It could see play. It may not be your top choice, but moving on, we have Cabaret Ascendancy. Or Cabaret. I suck at pronouncing names, sorry. It's an enchantment for a green, red, and white. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature or a planeswalker card, you may reveal it, put it into your hand. If you don't, put the card into your hand. You may put it on the bottom of your library. So basically, you look at the top card. If it's creature or planeswalker, you can put it in your hand, but you have to reveal it. But no matter what, if it's not, or if you choose not to, you can put it on the bottom. So basically, if it's a creature and you don't want it in your hand, because it's too much for what you got right now, you can just put it to the bottom and save it for later. Next up, we have the Cabaret Charm. That's just what I'm going to call it, Cabaret. I know it's probably not that, but that's so much easier to say. For red, green, and white, you can choose one. This charm deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to target creature or planeswalker. That's pretty good. Creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain travel till end of turn. Or you could create 2 citizen tokens. I think this is a better charm than the other one. I mean, probably the weakest ability is the making 2 creature tokens. But if you have an entire deck built around building tokens, this is actually pretty good. I mean, the second ability gives +1/+1 and trample to all your creatures. Broker's Charm only does 1, or destroys 1, or lets you draw 2. If you have 10 creatures on the field, they all get... You're basically getting +10/+10. And it deals damage to equal to the number of creatures you control to target creature or planeswalker. So if your opponent's got one big creature and you got like 4 little creatures, and those 4 little creatures, could easily, finish off the game, but you're being blocked by a 4/4, you could get rid of it. I mean, it's circumstantial, but I think there's some definite... This is the best charm so far. Moving on to Celestial Regulator. For 3 mana, 1 blue, 1 white, 1 colorless. It has flying. It's a 2/3. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature you don't control and tap it. If you control a creature with a counter on it, the chosen creature is not untapped during his controller's next untap step. So this is almost like a mod card for white and blue. So if you're building a mod deck, you definitely want to put this card in there for the white-blue mod. Next up, we have Ceremonial Groundbreaker. 1 green, 1 white, 1 colorless. Equipped creature gets +2/+1 and trample. Equip to a citizen for 1 or equip for 3. I think this is a pretty good equipment. It's not horrible. It's not great. It's okay. I would definitely choose this probably over the Jackhammer. Civil Servant for green and a white. When it attacks, you may untap a citizen you control. If you do, Civil Servant gets +1/+0 and gains lifelink till end of turn. Pretty good. It has the potential to become a 3/3. So, yeah, I'd say that's pretty good. If you're definitely thinking about building a citizen deck, you're probably going to want 4 of these in there. This will be a top choice for citizen decks. And it itself is a citizen. So, when you choose your attackers, you have to tap anyway. So if you got 2 of these, you can untap them, basically giving them vigilance too on top of it. One untaps the other. So, it's not legendary. Cormella Glamour Thief. Red, black, white, and colorless. Legendary creature, Vampire Rogue for 2/4. She has haste. You can tap 1 and tap her. Add 3 mana, 1 of each color, to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast an instant or sorcery spell. When she dies, return up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. I think she'll see some play. I definitely see some potential there, you know. Use her to make 3 to cast a spell. We have Mirror Box, so you can actually have 4 of her out at the same time, so that's 12 mana you can make if you can get all 4 onto the field at one point. But, I mean, that's like Magical Christmas Land, to be honest. But it helps to dream, doesn't it? Oh, those big moves you like to pull off. 1 green, 1 black, 1 blue for another vampire rogue. That's a 3/3 called Corpse Appraiser. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 creature card from a graveyard. If a card is put into exile this way, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of those cards into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. Maybe it would see play. I'm not entirely sure. It definitely would not be a top pick. I'm not, if you've come to realize, I'm not the biggest fan when it comes to cards that require you to, how do I put it? Require you to mill your own deck. I think if there is a deck design that works for that, maybe. But you could lose land. You can lose instant sorceries. This is only looking for a creature. And there's other things you can use to do that exact same thing without losing cards. Now, maybe if you have a deck, like I've seen people running decks on Arena with like 200 cards in them, maybe, because then you're not so concerned with losing some cards. But moving on, you have Corpse Explosion for 1 colorless, 1 black, and 1 red. You can, as an additional cost, exile a creature card from your graveyard. Corpse Explosion deals damage equal to the exile card's power to each creature and each planeswalker. So this has the potential to basically be a 3-drop board wipe if you get rid of something big. Or if you lost something big in the early game, basically. That's basically how I see it. Other than that, I mean, yeah, it's definitely a card if you're playing red and black, you definitely probably going to want to have this. So, moving on, we have Crew Captain for black, red, and green. Human Warrior with haste. She's a 4/2. Crew Captain has indestructible as long as it entered the battlefield this turn. It's kind of a shame that she doesn't come with blue. That she's green. Because if she was red, black, blue, she would be a perfect addition to making like some of the ninja decks. Because then you could summon her, attack with her, she's indestructible. So if they choose not to block it because they know, oh, it's indestructible, I can't kill it anyway, then you can ninjutsu her out and bring in somebody else. I mean, you could still do that. It still has black, but I think she'll see play in the if you're building this 3 colors. I definitely think she'll be a top contender in that deck. So, I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't. A 3-drop for a 4/2 with haste. I mean, and it's basically unstoppable the turn it comes in. So, next up we have Darling of the Masses. This, I can already tell you from the glimpse at the bottom, it's definitely a must use. It's a 4-drop with a green, white, and 2 colorless. Other citizens you control get +1/+0. Whenever it attacks, you create a citizen token. So, like I said, yes, definitely this is something you want. If you can get 4 of these into play, then all your citizens are going to be getting +4/+4s. So, this is, like I said, a definite play. Next up, we have Disciplined Duelist for a green, a white, and a blue. Human Citizen is a 2/1 with double strike. It enters the battlefield with a shield counter on it. I would definitely pick that one if I were building a citizen deck, which honestly, all the cards I've seen for a citizen deck, I actually am excited to give that combination a try. I think it would definitely be interesting to use and test out. It's not something I would play professionally. If I was worried about playing it professionally, I wouldn't risk it, but just for some fun matches, just to try it out, yeah. Endless Detour, same mana cost as the previous card. It's an instant, it's a rare. The owner of target spell, non-land permanent, or a card in a graveyard puts it on top or bottom of their library. The owner of target spell, non-land permanent, or a card in a graveyard. So I'm guessing you could use this, like, if you lost something and you want to bring it back, you can put it on top. If there's something in your opponent's graveyard or on their field that you want to stop them from using, you can put it on the bottom. So definitely think that'll see some play. It will be annoying, but I think that's its purpose. You definitely wouldn't want to put something on their field back on top of their deck, unless you had a really good reason. Evelyn, the Covetous. Legendary creature, vampire rogue, flash. She's a 2/5. When she or another vampire enters the battlefield under your control, exile the top card of each player's library with a collection counter on it. Once each turn, you may play a card from exile with a collection counter on it. If it was exiled by an ability you control, you may spend mana as though it were any color to cast it. So, with this one, I think they're doing something a little different, and I actually think I like it because it does not make it permanent. And I'll tell you what I mean by that here. So when she comes into the battlefield or another vampire enters the battlefield, both players are going to lose the top card. And it's going to have a counter on it. But then let's say your opponent destroys this card. Okay, oh darn, now you can't play it. Now normally that would be permanent. The cards exiled are just exiled for good. But then let's say 4 turns later you bring out another copy of her. Well, now all the cards that had counters on it that are in exile are now accessible again because they were exiled with this ability. Even though it's from a different creature, they still have the counters on them, so I think that's how that works. Next off, we have exotic pets for white and green, or white and blue, and a colorless. Create 2 blue fish tokens that can't be blocked. See, this would be good with a ninja deck. Make the fish tokens that can't be blocked. Once they attack, you can ninja them out. Then, for each kind of counter among creatures you control, put a counter of that kind on either of those tokens. Which might be useful, but the main part is you get to create 2 fish tokens that can't be blocked. So, next off we have Falco. Sparrow Pact Weaver. For blue, white, green, and colorless. Flying, trample, bird demon. It is a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield with a shield counter on it. It also has, you may look at the top card of your library at any time. And it finally has, you may cast a spell from the top of your library by removing a counter from creatures you control, in addition to paying their other cost. That would definitely be useful, I think. If your deck is designed to put lots of counters onto things, I definitely think that'll be a pick. You'd have to build the deck around him, so I'm not entirely sure people will do that. Ooh, I see a card I like. Next up, we have Fatal Grudge for a black and a red. It's a sorcery. Adds an additional cost. Sacrifice an all-land permanent. Each opponent chooses a permanent they control that shares a type with the sacrificed permanent and sacrifices it. Draw a card. So if you sacrifice a creature, they have to sacrifice a creature? Or if you sacrifice, let's say, a human, do they have to sacrifice a human? I think it's type, so like creature, artifact, enchantment. So if you sacrifice creatures, they have to sacrifice a creature. I think the other things like humans, elf druid, human warrior, I think those are subtypes, so Fleetfoot Dancer for a white, a green, a red, and a colorless. Elf Druid, it's a 4/4. Trample, lifelink, haste. Need I say it? It will see play. It's a 4-drop that's a 4/4 with 3 abilities. It doesn't get much better than that. Oops. Next up, we have Forge Boss. It's a 3/4 human warrior. It costs a red, a black, and 2 colorless. It's a uncommon. Whenever you sacrifice one or more other creatures, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. This ability only triggers once each turn. Well, I mean, to be honest, how many creatures are you going to sacrifice in a turn. I mean, normally you would only sacrifice one each turn if you could avoid sacrificing any unless you had to. I really don't like these limitations because it really limits the card, and it really makes me look at that and go, yeah, no one's going to play that. Why did you print it? You wasted money. Like, somebody actually sat down and designed cards that aren't going to see play. And that happens a lot, I've noticed, with Magic cards. I'd be like, the idea is we want people to play every single card in this set, not just a few good cards from each set. But moving on, we have Glamorous Outlaw. Cost, I'm just going to... okay, from this point on, I think I'm just going to say the cost. The total cost. You can see on screen what the actual cost is. So I'm just going to say the total mana cost. Unless you guys don't want me to. If you want me to actually sit here and go red, black, blue. But for a mana cost of 6, it is a vampire rogue that's a 4/5. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to each opponent, and you scry 2. Okay, so far, so good. I mean, it's a little high for 6, but... For 2 mana, you can exile it from your hand. Target land gains tap, add blue, black, or red until Glamour Outlaw is cast from exile. You may cast Glamour Outlaw as long as it remains exiled. So this should have been a rare because this is actually a decent card. In the early game, if it's in your hand, you can tap 2 and put this ability on a land. And this card just sits in exile. Almost like Forecast. Only better than Forecast because it's actually giving off an ability to your basic land, which, let's say, okay, and then this scenario, you put that on a swamp. Well, now your swamp can tap for blue or red also. And it keeps that ability until you bring this into play when you have the mana to spend 6 to play this. And then as soon as it enters, it's dealing 2 damage. So, yeah, I think this would see play. I mean, it's a really good early game card that turns into a nice late game card. When your opponent's made you discard or you're out of cards in hand, you still have this creature you can play to set up your next 2 draws. So I definitely think that'll see play. Next up, we have Hostile Takeover for 5 mana. It's a sorcery. Up to 1 target creature has a base power and toughness of 1/1 until end of turn. Up to 1 other target creature has a base power of 4/4 until end of turn. Then Hostile Takeover deals 3 damage to each creature. So basically, they got a 6/6. You have a 1/1. You make your 1/1 a 4/4, and their 6/6 a 1/1. Then everything on the field takes 3 damage. They lose their biggest. You just barely kept yours. Your weakest. But if your weakest has a good ability, well, you flip the script on them, basically. Incandescent Auraria. For mana cost of 3, it deals 3 damage to each non-token creature. That will definitely probably see some play. It's a nice weakling board wipe. Especially if you have a field that's just full of tokens, then you're wiping away a good amount of creatures. Like, this thing is absolutely broken and bonkers with the mob we have, the Scoop mob, I think it is, from Kaladesh. Yeah, because, I mean, you're gonna... Oh, no, it's from Zendikar. Because that's landfall, that's right. And I'm really surprised, tell you the truth, with landfall, there's one thing I keep wishing they would do, and I'm hoping if we ever go back to Zendikar again, they really consider doing this. But I want a landfall set where when your opponent puts a land into play, and maybe that's where we could do the reverse that I talked about in my last video. I want there to be an ability where it's like landfall, but when your opponent puts a land into play, bad things happen. Either they lose a life, or it deals damage, or gives you a copy of a creature. I think that would be really awesome to have. And it would make your opponent have to deal with your threat before they can play their land. So if it's early game and you got something like that out, it can really hold them back, and they have to deal with that by playing other cards first. And that's why I said I want a reverse game where you got all these creatures and stuff that do things, all these enchantments that do things based on your opponent playing certain cards. They play a creature, it does something to them, or it gives you a bonus because they're making a move. That would be insanely awesome. And I think it would really change up how people play this game. Because then you really have to think. Do I want to play my creature that I planned on playing? Or can I attack first? Hopefully I get rid of their creature. You know, stuff like that. But moving on. We have Jet and Meyer, Nexus of Revels. So it's a white, a green, a 4 mana cost. Legendary creature. It's a 5/4. It's a mythic. Creatures you control get +1/+0. Have vigilance as long as you control 3 or more creatures. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and have trample as long as you control 6 or more creatures. And same thing, but double strike as long as you control 9 or more creatures. I definitely think that'll see some play. Especially since green and white love to make tokens, as we just pointed out with the incandescent. Wasn't there? Yeah, and it fits with her. So even she would buff up him. So yeah, I definitely think these two together. So it's a marriage made in heaven. Alright, moving on. We have Jet Meyer's Fixer. Red and a green. Jet Meyer's Fixer gets +1/+1 until end of turn. If mana from a treasure was spent, put a 1/1 counter on it instead. That I think would definitely see some play. Next off, we have a 3-drop Legendary Elf Druid. It's a 3/3. Ginny Faye, Jet Meyer's second. If you would create one or more tokens, you may instead create that many 2/2 green cat creature tokens with haste, or that many 1 green dog creature tokens with vigilance. I think that would see some play. You'll at least see like maybe 2 put in a deck. I don't think people are going to overload a deck with that, but Lagrella the Magpie. For 3 mana cost, she's a 2/3. When she enters the battlefield, exile any number of target creatures you control by different players until Lagrella leaves the battlefield. When the exiled cards enter the battlefield under your control, you may put 2 1/1 counters on it. When it enters the battlefield, exile any number of other creatures you control by different players until Wait, what? When she enters the battlefield, exile any number of other target creatures controlled by different players. So, wait, hold on. Until she leaves the battlefield. When an exile card enters the battlefield under your control, this way. So, does that mean you can basically, if you got 5, other than her, and your opponent has 5, you can exile all 5 of yours. They have to exile all 5 of theirs. But then as soon as she leaves play, they get their 5 back. You get your 5 back. Only your 5 all re-enter with 2/2 counters. If that's what I think it means, then she will definitely see play. If it's not, and if that's how it works, this should not be an uncommon. This should be a rare or mythic. Because it has the potential to board wipe. And then when the board wipe is basically over once she's dead, your dudes come back a little stronger than they were. Provided I understood that correctly. Anyways, moving on. For a 7 mana cost, this is a 6/6 mythic, Lord Xander the Collector. When Lord Xander the Collector enters the battlefield, target opponent discards half the cards in their hand rounded down. When it attacks defending player mills, half their library rounded down. When it dies, target opponent sacrifices. Yeah, this will see play. This will definitely see some play. Mill decks are going to love this. And they're going to try to create a ton of tokens, treasure tokens, to get that into play super early. Maestro's Descendancy is a 3 mana cost. Once during each of your turns, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your graveyard by sacrificing a creature in addition to paying its other cost. If you cast a spell this way, if a spell cast this way would be put into the graveyard, exile it instead. Once during each of your turns, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell. So basically, it gives all your instant and sorceries flashback. at the cost of sacrificing a creature. Maybe that'll see some play if you're really, really needing to replay. So, like, mill decks might do this, but Maestro's Charm, 3 cost. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Put one of those cards into your hand. Put the rest into the graveyard. Well, you can definitely tell that's a blue-black ability. Each opponent loses 3 life. You gain 3 life. And it deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker. Might see some play. That's definitely better than a previous card we looked at in red, I believe. Next up, we have Maestro's Diabolist for 3 mana. It's a 1/4 with Death Touch and Haste. When it attacks, if you don't control a devil token, create a tapped and attacking 1/1 red devil token creature. When this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. That'll probably see some play. I would have made this an uncommon. But I guess a rare works too. But it's a 3-drop for a 1/4. Next up, we have Mass Bandit for 6 mana. It's a 5/5 with Vigilance, Menace. You may exile it. So this is basically this color scheme, red, green, and black. It's their version of the Outlaw. So definitely think that'll see play. Like I said, it's really good in the early game, and it's even better for the late game. Now we get to the cream of the crop. The one card I always look forward to, especially when you got a heavy multicolored set. And that is the 5-colored card. So, in this set, our 5-colored card is Meeting of the Five. For 8 mana, I just love seeing all the colors together. Exile the top 10 cards of your library. You may cast spells with exactly 3 colors from among them this turn. Add 10 mana to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast the spells with exactly 3 colors. So I'm guessing what it means is this card, this card, this card, this card, this card. You get the point. But you can only do 3. You can only do up to 3 with this 10 mana. 1 is going to be left over. So, but this is actually something that could fit into any one of the decks. As long as you can make treasure tokens, you only need treasure tokens to fill out the other 2 spots. It does cost 8 mana, but it gives you 10. So, I mean, basically, I think this will only go into decks that run green. And the reason I say that is because they'll combo this basically with Bootlegger's stash. And the deck itself will probably be extremely heavy on tokens. So maybe green-red decks. It could be green-red-white, green-red-black. Next up, we have Metropolitan Angel for 4 mana. Angel Soldier with flying, it's a 3/1. Whenever you attack with one or more creatures with counters on them, draw a card. That'll definitely see some play, I believe. That would definitely work in a mod deck from Kamigawa. So, because like I said, there's plenty of cards from Kamigawa that rely on putting counters and working with modifications. So, Mr. Oreo the Boulder. Mr. Orpho. I'm just going to call him Mr. Oreo. Costs 4 mana. He's a legendary creature. He's a 2/4. Whenever you attack, double target creature's power until end of turn. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that'll see some play. You turn a 5/5 into a 10/10 or a 10/5 if it has trample and other stuff. Like this raccoon has vigilance and menace. Next up, we have Nimble Larsonist. For 3 mana, it's a bird rogue, 2/1 flying. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand. Choose an artifact, instant, or sorcery card from it and exile it. That'll probably see some play. I definitely feel like there'll be a rebranch of the discard decks after this. Oh, and next up we have an old familiar face. Good old Ob. He's back. Ob Nexus, the adversary? Nexus has Casualty X. This copy isn't legendary. It has a starting loyalty of X. So right off the bat, when you play him, you can make a copy of him by sacking a creature. If the creature has a high power, let's say 10. So you sacrifice a creature that has a power of 10, and the copy comes in with 10 counters on it, which means you can use the ultimate ability right away and still have some left over. Bring it down to the 3 that this one starts with. But let's go through each one. So the first loyalty ability is each opponent loses 2 life unless they discard a card. If you control a demon or a devil, you gain 2 life. Not bad. -2 is create a 1/1 devil creature token with when this dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. That's not bad either. I wouldn't probably use it. I'd probably use the first one. And then it's -7 is target player draws 7 card and loses 7 life. Yeah, see, you use that on your opponent when they're at like 5 life, and you win. Or if you are sitting high and pretty at 20 life, you can go ahead and use that on yourself. Yeah, you'll take 7, but I mean, if you're running white in your deck, like red, white, red, black, white, you can easily gain that life back with black and white. So, did we get that color scheme? I don't think we did. No, I don't think that's one of the color schemes of 3. So, moving on, we have Obscura Ascendancy, black, blue, or 3 mana. It's an enchantment. Whenever you cast a spell, if its mana value is equal to 1 plus the number of soul counters on Ascendancy, put a soul counter on Ascendancy, then create a 2/2 spirit token with flying. If it has 5 or more soul counters on it, spirits you control get +3/+3. I definitely think that'll see play. I really do. And will make a spirit deck really good. Of course, you'll have to branch out an extra color. But, I mean, there's spirits in all 3 of those. There's lots of cards that target spirits in all 3 of those. So, Obscura Charm for 3 mana. Return a multicolored permanent from card for mana 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. That's really good. Counter target instant sorcery spell. That's not bad, but that's usually on a 1-drop or a 2-drop. And then destroy target creature or planeswalker with mana cost 3 or less. So Obnixless, basically. I mean, all the other ones. How many times do you really see planeswalkers with 3 or less mana cost? Be honest. Like, there's maybe 1 per set. And they're usually, the reason why they're 3 or less is because they're not that great. I think it'll see some play. It wouldn't be my top pick, but that burst ability is probably better for a spirit deck because most spirits cost under 3 mana. Moving on, we have Obscura Interceptor for 4 mana. It's a 3/1 with flash lifelink. When it enters the battlefield, it connives. When it connives this way, return up to 1 target spell to its owner's hand. Probably wouldn't see a lot of play, I wouldn't think. But you never know. Next off, we have Agnes, the Dragon's Lash. For 4 mana, it's a legendary creature with haste, and it's a 3/3. Whenever a creature you control with haste attacks, create a tapped treasure token. Why? I guess they don't want you to use that treasure right away. That'll probably see some play, in a treasure deck. Anything to get more treasures out quickly. And then if this is in a treasure deck, you're probably going to be seeing this like turns 2 or 3. So, by the way, is it just me, or does that look like an old-fashioned nuke symbol behind the words? I've been noticing that. It's like that watermark looks kind of like a nuke. Park Heights Pegasus, 1 green or 2 mana drop, flying trample. When it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. If you had 2 or more creatures enter the battlefield under your control this turn. So it's situational for if you have 2 or more creatures enter the battlefield. Otherwise, you don't get to draw. And only if it deals combat damage, you get to draw. So if it gets blocked, you're screwed. Probably won't see a ton of play. There will be people who probably try it. But I think it'll get blocked too easily, and I think it'll be killed off too easily to stick around and deal any major damage or at all damage. But, it depends how you play. If you're throwing in red, you could keep killing off their flyers, letting your flyers do the attacking. But you also have to be playing 2 creatures every turn. So, next off we have Quasi-Augur of Agonies. For 4 mana, whenever you draw a card, target opponent loses a life, you gain a life. That will definitely be seeing some play. I might build a deck around it. Like, I would probably build a deck just around that one card. Everything will be designed to keep him alive and keep me drawing cards and keep me gaining life and my opponent losing life. Next off, Raffine, Scheming Seer. But that Quasar, I'm just telling you now, that would be a deck I would build just for the fun of it. It's not like I would say go to a tournament with that kind of deck. But you never know. It could surprise you. Raffine, Scheming Seer, costs 3. He's a 1/4. He's flying, ward 1. Whenever you attack, target attacking creature connives X, where X is the number of attacking creatures. That will probably see some play. But I'm not entirely sure. I'm pretty sure that would see some play. It's not horrible. But it does require you to do a lot of draw and to discard a lot of cards. I mean, it would work best. Like, these 2 would be buddies. Next off, we have Rakish Revelers. I noticed there's also no red, white, and blue either in this series of 3 colors. But anyways, we have Rakish Revelers for 5 mana. It is the white, green, red version of the Outlaw. And when it enters, you create a citizen token. Not bad. Like I said, if you're running those colors, it'll probably see some play. And I'm probably going to say that one more time later down the road because I think we got one more trio set that we still need to do one of those outlaws for. I think there's 4 in this. Anyways, Rigo Streetwise Mentor. Costs 3. It's a legendary creature. When it enters the battlefield, with a shield counter on it. Whenever you attack a player or a planeswalker with 1 or more creatures with power 1 or less, draw a card. That will definitely probably see some play. I mean, you're not going to get that ability from it attacking, so you don't need it to attack. You just need 2 1/1s to attack. And then you get to draw. And they don't even have to attack the same target. You could have 1 attacking a player and 1 attacking the planeswalker. So keep that in mind too. Actually, wait. Whenever you attack a player with one or more creatures with power 1 or less. Okay, so you don't even need more than one. You can just have one creature attack. So that would actually work really well with the Samurai deck. Because then when you're attacking with your Samurais will bump up the one attacking or do things for that one attacking, and then he'll allow you to draw a card on top of it. So next up, Riveter's Ascendancy. For 3 mana, whenever you sacrifice a creature, you may return a target creature from your graveyard with lesser mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield tap. You can only do this once per turn. And that probably will see some play. Riveter's Charm. See, doesn't that look like a nuke? It also looks like it has the symbol of Thor. Thor's hammer. Target opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker they control with the highest mana value among creatures and planeswalkers they control. Exile the top 3 cards of your library until end of the next step. You may play those cards and exile target player's graveyard. Honestly, I don't think that one's going to see much play. I mean, there's lots of cards that can exile a target player's graveyard, and the only time you really need to worry about their graveyard is if they're doing all kinds of crap with getting cards back from their graveyard. The first one, there's a lot in black that can do much better, and there's a lot in red that can do much better. And you don't have to make them sacrifice. And you probably don't want them to sacrifice, because if they have cards out to help them for sacrificing, then you're only helping them get those effects. Next up, we have Rocco. Cabaret Caterer for 3 and X. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you may search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. That might see some play. It's a good search if you got the mana to spend. And if you're running treasures, well, it's got green in it, so you probably will be. You can get something nice. Scheming Fence for 2. It's a 2/3 citizen. When it enters the battlefield, choosing non-land permanent, activated abilities of the chosen permanent can't be activated. Scheming Fence has all activated abilities of the chosen permanent except for loyalty abilities. You may spend mana as though it were any mana to activate those abilities, so that's pretty good. It doesn't take away their creature, but it basically makes it basically transfers that creature's abilities over to your creature, returning their creature to just a vanilla normal creature. Oh, I'm so glad I separated it this way. I didn't realize there was this many multicolored cards. Wow. Next up, Security Rocks for 4 mana. It's a 5/4. You may pay 2 rather than this spell's mana cost. Spend this mana only to spend only mana produced by treasures to cast in this way. So basically, if you're doing it with treasures, you can make it a 2 instead of a 4. That's pretty cool. And here's our next land one. So same thing, but when it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life. probably the weakest. And at 7 mana, this one is probably going to be the one that does not see play. It's good in the early game. I mean, so unless you're doing this just for this ability and keeping around just in case, I don't think this will see play. The others were all better than this. And what? It gives you 3 life. Whoa. There's 1 drop in whites that give you 3 life. So no, I don't think this one will see play at all. Next up, Snooping Newsy for 2 mana. When it enters the battlefield, mill 2 cards. As long as there are 5 or more mana value among cards in your graveyard. Who thought this was a good idea? Seriously. It gets +1/+1. It has lifelink. That might see play, but I probably wouldn't play it because I don't like to mill myself. But hey, if you're into milling yourself, go for it. Less cards I have to worry about. I'll use my red deck and take it out as soon as it hits the battlefield. So now you've milled yourself down 2 cards, and I spent 1 red to kill your 2. I mean, it's not practical. Next up, Soul of Emancipation for 7 mana. When it enters the battlefield, destroy up to 3 target non-land permanents. For each of those permanents, its controller creates a 3/3 white angel creature token with flying. So, looking at this card, I instantly want to start by saying this will not see play. Just due to the fact it is a 7 cost. However, if you're running this in the right deck, this could be a powerhouse that plays in your favor. So basically, if you're running a token deck, you want this card as a clutch card. Meaning, all you've got is a bunch of tokens. Your opponent's blocking your way with no flyers. Boom, you put this into play, you kill off 3 of your own tokens, and you get 3 new tokens that are all 3/3 white angels. The idea, when you look at this, they want you to think, oh, use this to take out your opponent's biggest creatures, replacing it with 3 white angels. That is possible, but I would say, why would I do that? I'll just kill my own tokens or creatures and make better tokens or creatures. Other than that, like I said, there is no reason anybody would play this card. It's kind of a wasted rare. It only works in that one scenario. And that possible, maybe, magical Christmas land second scenario, where let's say they have 3 6/6s on the field, or 10/10s, and that's only if you can destroy them, because some of them might have indestructible, so boom, you can't destroy them anymore. Sparrow's Agitators for 5 mana. It's a 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls can't attack or block till your next turn. Oh, so this is the one for... Okay, so we did have one more outlaw, basically. And this is that trio color set. I would have to say this one might see a little bit of play. Definitely more play than the other one. Because you basically... When this 4/4 enters the battlefield, you can make one of theirs. You can make one of theirs not be able to block or attack. Sorry, I'm seeing the card title for the next card. Try not to look. I'm trying to focus on this card. My eyes are just being drawn to the last card. Um, Definitely good in the early game, as I always say. But yeah, this one's a little bit better. I mean, it's not as good as some of the first ones we saw, but it's definitely better than I think it was the Shattered Seraph. Yeah, because it only costs 5 to play. All right, now we get into the really. Oh, I want this card just because of recent times. Stimulus package. When stimulus package enters the battlefield, create 2 treasure tokens. Sacrifice a treasure, create a citizen token. Okay, so this is definitely going to see play. Not just because of the name, not just because it's funny, but because, well, like earlier we had a card that when it did something, I think it was when it attacked, you got a treasure token that enters tapped. Well, this lets you just say, okay, well, thanks for the token. Now I'll just sack that token off and make a dude. So I definitely think that'll see play. That should have been a freaking rare. That's a card people are going to play. Next up, Syndicate Infiltrator for 4 mana. It's a flying vampire whenever there are 5 or more mana cards, blah, 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 blah. It gets +2/+2, so it can possibly become a 5/5 if you have enough cards in your graveyard with different mana cost. Next up, we have Tated Indulgence for 2 mana. Draw 2 cards and discard a card unless you have 5 or more mana. So, I mean, late game, it has the potential of being just draw 2 cards. And when it says 5 or more mana values among cards in your graveyard, I think it just means like total cost. Do you have one that costs 1? Then another one that costs 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, they're really trying to push getting you to play more than just 1 drops, 2 drops, and the 1 or 2 rare 3 drops. They want you to play up to at least 5 or 6 different mana cost cards. For 3 mana, Tolzin's Clever Conductor. Human Rogue Legendary. 3/1. When it enters the battlefield, it connives. Draw a card. Yeah, you should know what connives does. When you discard 1 or more cards, exile them from your graveyard. When it dies, put the cards exiled with it into their owner's hands. Why? Sorry, I'm trying to understand why they word some of these the way they do. Um, so it says whenever you discard 1 or more cards, you exile them from your graveyard. Okay, that's fine. I get that. But then the next section says when this card dies, which is really funny. They didn't actually spout the whole thing. They just said Tolzid. But when Tolzid dies, put cards exiled with it into their owner's hands. Why owner's hands? Why not just say return the exile cards to your hand? Makes no sense sometimes. I mean, there's nothing in standard, as far as I know, that lets you steal cards from your opponent and put it into your hand. There might be some in like old legacy stuff, but getting down to the final four now. We have Unleash the Inferno for 4 mana. It's an instant rare. It deals 7 damage to target creature or planeswalker. It deals excess damage, or when it deals excess damage this way, destroy artifact or enchantment an opponent controls with mana value less than or equal to the amount of excess damage. That'll probably be played, especially if your opponent's got a lot of artifacts and enchantments. Void Rend. For 3 mana, this spell can't be countered. Destroy target non-land permanent. That'll definitely see a lot of play. There's really nothing else I need to say about that, so. Zaitora, the Incinerator, for 6 mana. It's flying. It's a demon dragon, legendary creature. 6/6. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, this card deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target, and you create 3 treasure tokens. I definitely think this will see some play. It does a lot of good stuff. And being that you get to create 3 treasure tokens, it's definitely going to be in a treasure token heavy deck. And the last multicolored card we have for 4 mana, it's a 5/4. When it has trample, by the way. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, look at the top card of your library. You may play a land card from the top of your library or cast a spell with mana value less than or equal to the damage dealt from the top of your library without paying its mana cost. If you don't, put the card into your hand and you can blitz it. I definitely think that'll see some play. It looks like its ability is pretty good. I don't know why you'd blitz it. Except to make it stronger, like I said, with some of the black cards we have. But yeah. I'm really looking forward to trying a blitz deck. Next, we finish off with good old artifacts, which we don't have too many. No, not too many. That kind of sucks. I like artifacts. I miss the days of the Eldrazi colorless decks. That was my favorite. Artifact decks are kind of my favorite. I like running artifact decks that have no color in them. Starting off, we have Arc Spitter for 1. Equipped creature has tap 1. This creature deals 1 damage to target creature that's blocking it. That might be good. Definitely better than the Jackhammer. Next, we have Brass Knuckles, which look like they're on fire. Brass Knuckles costs 4. When you cast this spell, copy it. This copy becomes a token. Equipped creature has double strike as long as 2 or more equipments are attached to it and equips for 1. That's actually pretty nice. as soon as you play it, it gives you a double. So essentially, your deck can have 8 brass knuckles in them. Yeah, I definitely like that card. I definitely think it's a solid. I think it should be a rare. Cement Shoes. 1. Equipped creature gets +3/+3 and has, at the beginning of your end step, tap this creature. A equipped creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. I wish you could maybe equip that to an opponent's creature, but this is a card. Basically, what you'd want to do with this is this would be in a red deck, where you take control of your opponent's creature. Then you attack with that creature with the shoes on. Then it would be tapped, and when it returns to your opponent, it would stay equipped until they unequip it. But the creature will lose a turn anyway. Or wait, no, because you still control the equipment, so theirs will just stay equipped with it. They can't unequip it, I don't believe. So basically, steal their creature, attack with their creature, keep it tapped down forever. Next, we have Chrome Cat. When it enters the battlefield, scry 1. Probably not going to see a lot of play. A lot of these kinds of cards don't really see a ton of play. There's not a whole lot. I mean, if there were more artifacts, better artifacts, I'd say it would, but I don't. Maybe in a vehicle deck, but we have a lot of more better cards, and all it does is let you scry, so probably not going to see much play out of that. Getaway Car, 3 mana for a 4/3 with haste. When it attacks or blocks, return up to 1 creature that crewed it this turn to its owner's hand. That might see some play if you have the right creatures out, if you're playing it in the right deck. A lot of things that have EBT triggers. Other than that, I don't see it getting a lot of play, but you never know. Next up, we have Gilded Peons. For 2 mana, when it enters the battlefield, create a treasure token. Equipped creature has flying and equip for 2. That might see some play, just based off the fact it makes a treasure token. So essentially, it only costs you 1 to equip, because they're giving you 1 right off the bat. So you can play this on turn 3. 2 out. Have still 1. Halo Scarab. 2 mana cost for 2/1. For 2 mana, exile it from your graveyard, create a treasure token. That might see some play. Because, you drop it, you can attack with it, and when it dies, you can make it still more useful by turning it into a treasure. So, Luxior Gilda's Gift. 1 drop, legendary artifact. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each counter on it. So basically, if you have a bunch of 1/1 counters on a creature, those 1/1 counters are now 2/2 counters. Equipped creature isn't a planeswalker and is a creature in addition to its other types. Loyalty abilities can still be activated. You can equip it to a planeswalker for 1, or you can equip it to a creature for 3. Okay, so I don't understand this. Why say this, but then say this? I mean, that makes no sense. Whatever. Yes, I definitely think that'll see play. That'll see probably a ton of play. If you're running a Planeswalker, you're probably going to have this in the deck. Ominous Parcel. I mean, hell, if you're running any counters, you're probably going to see this. Ominous Parcel for 1. Sacrifice it. Search your library for a basic land. Reveal it. Put it into your hand. For 5. Sacrifice it. It deals 4 damage to target creature. That'll probably see play just for the search ability for land. Next off, we have Paragon of Modernity. Artifact, creature, Angel Warrior. It's a 2/2. Well, you're not winning me over yet, but it is a common, so. For 3 mana, it gets +1/+1 till end of turn. If there are exactly 3 colors of mana that are spent to activate this, put a 1/1 counter on it instead. That might see a little bit of play, but the fact it costs 4 probably won't. I mean, it should have costed like 3, then 3, you know. Yeah. Quick Draw Dagger for 3 mana. It's flash. When Quick Draw Dagger enters the battlefield, attached to target creature you control, that creature gains first strike till end of turn. Equipped creature gets +1/+1, and you can equip for 1. That might see some play. Quite a bit of play. That's actually a really good equipment. That should have been uncommon or rare. And last here, almost last, we have Scuttling Butler. It's a construct. It's a 4/1. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if 2 or more multicolored, if you control 2 or more multicolored permanents, it gains double strike till end of turn. That might see some play. Suspicious Bookcase. It's a wall. It's a 0/4 with Defender. For 3 mana, tap. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. That will probably see play with the ninja decks, giving them easy access to their ninjutsu abilities. And lastly, we're going out with a vehicle. The last card is Unlicensed Hearse. Unlicensed Hearse. Tap, exile up to 2 cards from a single graveyard. Unlicensed Hearse. Power and toughness are equal to each number of cards exiled with it. Exile up to 2 cards from a single graveyard. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of cards exiled with it. So, why is this a rare? Yeah, you can exile up to 2 cards from a graveyard, but it's at best a 2/2. Whatever. Probably won't see play. Of all the vehicles we currently have in standard, this is like one of the weaker ones. I have to tap it. I have to tap it to exile cards from a graveyard to make its power and toughness equal to the number of cards exiled with it. So I'm guessing that it can build up. And that's what I'm guessing. So turn 1, can't do shit with it. Well, I guess you could, because it is an artifact. So you tap it, you exile 2 cards from your opponent's graveyard. Next turn, you tap it again, another 2 cards. Now it's a 4/4 when it finally gets to be crewed. And so on, and so on, and so on. But until you can get that up high enough, and if it dies, if this dies, and you bring him another one in later, it doesn't matter, because you have to exile it with that card. So, even if this gets blinked out, I don't know about phased out. You can tell me in the comment section below if phased out would count just as easily as blinked out. But even if this card gets blinked out by your opponent, which is possible, you're right back at square one, 0. So you have to do it all over again, build it up. So I would have made that an uncommon. Like I said, it takes too long. This is not a vehicle I would probably use. But that has been my review, or my previews for the new set. I am looking forward to it. I've got a bunch of interesting deck ideas I can't wait to share with you guys. I will probably do a day 1 release stream. So as soon as I'm able to sit down, once it downloads and I will do a thing where I show you what packs I open and everything. I'll do all that good stuff. So if you are not, please subscribe to this channel. And I will be back on premiere day for Arena, when I think that's this Friday, maybe, or Thursday. Or maybe it's next Thursday. I'm not entirely sure. But I will be back, and I will do a stream then. So I want to thank you all for watching. If you're not subscribed, please do check out the rest of the videos on this channel. Subscribe today. And if you really want to help me out, if you really like books and stories, I am also an author. I have a book series. You've seen it in every one of these preview videos down there below the ribbon, called The Guardian of Light. It is a modern day fantasy series that honestly I think is better than other things out there. It's fresh, it's original. I definitely think if you like those kinds of stories, if you like things like Magic the Gathering, I definitely think you'll like that. So please, if you like, check out that on Amazon. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. We're getting close to 80 as of today of the release of this video. We were sitting at 77. Every time I get a new set of 10 subscribers, I do a video where I give away a free digital code to movies, because I obtain a lot of movies. And I usually like to give away those codes whenever I get a set of 10. So if you want a free digital code for a movie, so you don't have to spend money on it, please share these videos with your friends, with your family, and tell them, hey, subscribe to this dude. He's really good. He's a man of his word. He gives away free movies. So more people we get subscribed, more movies I get to give out. So I will talk to you all next time. Bye.